Hi, my name is Steve, and today I'm going to be doing an overview of a motorized turntable that is done by a company called ComXim, C-O-M-X-I-M. This is model number MT320RUBL40. So let's take a look. We'll get into some of the pieces that come with this. You get the instruction manual. Definitely want to keep a hold of this. This is coming from overseas and Chinese language, and this is in English, but it also helps you with a lot of the instructions, links to a lot of the websites that you want to go to download the software. You've got the adapter for the power. You have a USB cable that connects it to the Windows computer. You have a remote control, so you can use a remote control. This also has Bluetooth, which will allow you to have an app on your phone that you can connect to and control it. And then you have the actual turntable. Now, I bought this about 3 months ago. I've been using it fairly extensively. And so one of the things you'll notice, I have some 3M command strips on here. I didn't want to take them off because then I've got to replace them. And I use those to hold objects onto the turntable as it's rotating. So I decided to leave them on there for the review. But it doesn't come with those included. But this is essentially almost a 12-inch turntable, 88-pound weight capacity. You have your power switch. You have the power plug, USB, and then around the other side there is a small hole on the side of it, which is where the infrared for the controller connects to. So the first method I want to go over for controlling the turntable is the remote control. Very easy to use just from a basic operations, but they do have a good overview in the manual of what all the different button options are. And what you're going to see is you have several different ways of controlling devices with this. You can hook this up to trigger a camera, so it will take a picture every so many intervals, so you can use this from a perspective of maybe you're capturing 3D scanning, so photogrammetry, and you need it to rotate, take a picture, rotate, take a picture. You can hook it up. I personally am not using it that way, but a lot of the options are you can set it for how many degrees of rotation, along with intervals that it would stop, take a picture, move, take a picture, move, take a picture, and you can do all of that off of the remote. Now, you do have some limitations on the remote because depending on how granular you want the movement to be, the exact timing of all of the intervals, you are limited to what's available on the remote. So the first thing you want to do once you get it plugged in, you're going to turn it on. Now, the one thing when you turn this on, it automatically starts rotating. So you're going to want to have the remote handy, so when you turn it on, it's going to beep, but it starts rotating right off the bat. So you just have to know that. You've got a stop start right in the middle. If I can find again, you've got the little hole on the side. That is for the infrared. So if you're over on this side, worked pretty good there. So it doesn't always pick up the infrared, so you have to kind of make sure it's working with the remote, depending on if you have things blocking that area. But overall, you can press the button to start the rotation. Of course, it's not going to work up here. Start the rotation going counterclockwise. I can stop it, move it back. It's going to go clockwise. And the nice thing is you do have the ability to save a position, have it rotate, and then press another button and it will return to the original position that you saved. So if you want to do a repeating motion, always having the object facing a specific way, you can save a position, reset it after it's been moved. You can also adjust the speed, so I can go faster, I can go slower. And I found it at a pretty decent range of from fast to slow. So the remote works very well. I haven't had any issues with it. I do use it frequently because it's just very handy. So next up, let's take a look at the Bluetooth app on an Android phone. The next option for controlling this turntable is, I'm using an Android phone. There is supposed to be an Apple app for this as well, but I have not tried the Apple app. But on the website, they did show where you could go out to the App Store to get that. But on Android, this model that I have is Bluetooth, does not have Wi-Fi. They do have a model with Wi-Fi, so you can look at that if you'd prefer to have a Wi-Fi option. Again, manual has instructions because the first time you pair this, there is a code you have to type in to synchronize it with the app. There is a barcode on the label as well as on some of the packaging and the instructions. So you can do a QR scan of the barcode. It'll take you to the app so that you know which specific app to download and install on your phone. A little bit confusing. As I said, a lot of the things are in Chinese, and so not everything is laid out as intuitively as we are used to here in the United States. So when you launch the app, it is going to open up the ComXim app. At the very top, you have a little option where it says it's scanning. So you have to make sure your device is turned on. Give it a few seconds after you hear the beeping noises. Stop it from rotating with the remote. And then this is going to be looking for your device. The thing that's a little bit confusing at first is it just keeps scanning. And at first I thought, well, why isn't it finding it? Why wouldn't it come up and tell me it found my device? Well, it actually does show that. At the very top, you'll see the model number listed. That shows up once it's found the device. So when I click on the model number, now I am in the actual app. Now, the first time you do this, it will come up. You'll have to enter a code. You can get those instructions in the instruction manual. But now that I'm connected, I can control this through my phone. You have several options in here. One is just to start and stop it, very similar to what was on the remote. You can go clockwise, counterclockwise. You can speed it up, speed it down. So all the same settings you had on that center button panel on the remote control, you have in the app. You can store your setting, move the rotation, and then have it go back to your original setting. You can do some of the options with triggering a remote camera. But the other thing that I like with the app, as well as when I get into the Windows software, is you have the ability to enter the exact number of degrees of rotation that you would like the turntable to move. And then you can also set a pause time, as well as how many times do you want it to repeat that movement. Right now, the app is showing me at 10 degrees. The other thing you want to look at is at the very top, you have continuous, so it will just keep rotating nonstop until you stop it. You have interval, which as you do this, you'll see things pop up on the screen, so you can read through some of those. Swing and command, CMD. Haven't used all of those because for my uses, I am controlling the timing and I don't necessarily use the pause or the repeat, but all of that is a little bit more granular control in the app on your phone than it is on the remote. And then you can put in a specific number of degrees and the rest of the information. The one thing I did find that was not working on the app, I consider this a bug within the app, you cannot go below 1 degree of rotation. Now, on the remote, which I still have here, one of the options, there's a couple of options on the remote where I can go 0.1 degree, 0.5 degrees. So I can go a half a degree. On the app, when I try to go under 1 degree, and I tried to, if I type in a 0 or if I type in a decimal, the app reboots. It starts over and it causes it to have an issue. So on the app, the only way I could get the actual angle or the rotation was putting in a whole number, so I could go to 1 degree, but I can't go below 1 degree. So that is one limitation on the app. Otherwise, everything works well. I didn't have any issues with the connectivity, with controlling it, and overall is a good option. So next, we're going to move on to my preferred method. The reason I bought this device was to control it from a Windows computer. So let's go through that next. The first thing you want to do is open up your web browser and go to www.comxim.com. When you get to the site, over on the upper right hand side, you're going to see where you can translate it to English. So click on the word English. Then you can go to the download section, and in the download section you'll see everything is listed in date order. So you want to look at the top options that have the most current date. And if you go under the turntable app, Android, iOS, all the information you need is in this one location. It gives you the information for the Android app, gives you the information for the Bluetooth app. So it depends on, do you have the Wi-Fi app or the Bluetooth app? And then at the very bottom is the USB for the Windows machine. So you have the turntable exe that you just have to download and put somewhere on your computer. There's nothing to install. And then you have the 4CH340 driver, and you need to download and install that first before you connect the turntable to the computer. Then you can launch the exe file, and there's nothing to install, just simply launch that as an administrator. Okay, so now that you have the drivers downloaded and installed, and you have the executable file on your computer, you can open up the application. I do recommend that you run this as an administrator. You don't have to, but it does seem to help with ensuring everything connects and runs properly. So I did find running the software as a administrator helps. One of the things, I do have my computer monitor off to the side here, so I'm going to be looking away from the camera here and there, but the main thing I want you to focus on is the software. When you first launch the software, you're going to see at the very top, it's got COM1. When I click the drop-down menu, that's all that I have. So you may have different USB devices attached to your computer, and so you may have extra items in that COM list. So look at that first to see what's already in there. Then we're going to take and hook up our turntable. So I have the power turned on. I have my USB plugged in. I'm going to plug this into a USB hub, turn it on. So now when I come over to the COM connection, I hit the drop down, and now suddenly COM 10 has shown up, which now I know that's the device I just plugged in. So that's the COM port I want to connect to. So you'll select that, which tells you it's this device. There are other instructions that show you how you can go into the device menu and get some of the information, but I found it much easier to just unplug and plug it in and see which COM port shows up, and then you know which one to select. Then you're going to hit the connect button. Everything will refresh. One of the ways you can tell if it's connected is just simply try to turn it. And there it goes, it starts. You can stop. You can rotate the other direction and stop, speed up, speed down. All the same controls that you see on the remote or on the app are available here, but I'm now controlling this from my Windows computer. The one thing that I did find that was nice within here is you're setting your different types of rotation, continuous, intermittent, but now under the number of degrees, I can enter any value that I want. I can put in any decimal number. You just want to start with a 0. I noticed if I tried to type 0.25, it wouldn't work, but if you type in 0.25, you will now only rotate a quarter of a degree for every turn. And you can still do your pause and how many times you want it to repeat, as well as some of the auto triggers. Now for me, why all of this was important was if you've watched any of my 3D printer time lapse, and if you haven't, it's a great opportunity to check out my channel, subscribe, see some of the time lapse videos that I do of my 3D printer and rotating it on this turntable. The main thing when I do, the main reason I wanted the Windows control is I use a macro recorder on my computer. And that macro recorder records the mouse clicks that I do. So I can have it trigger my camera to take a picture, then I can have it control the turntable to move a certain number of degrees, stop it, and now go into a repeating pattern. And the reason that's important is most time lapse is a set interval. You know, every 2 minutes you're going to take a picture and you're going to do something. And it's repeating every 2 minutes. That doesn't work for a 3D printer time lapse. You're doing each layer, you're taking a picture, but each layer takes a different amount of time to complete. So you don't know what the interval needs to be. I have my printer activates a push button that then activates my macro recorder to take a picture, activate the software to move the rotation, and now I have an automated way to control my time lapse, control the rotation at any interval, any given time, and that interval can change, and it's only triggered by a button click. So for my final thoughts, I've been very pleased with the device, but there are definitely some downsides to it. So let's go through a few of the pros. Obviously, connect it to a Windows computer. I do like the remote. Works very well, functions well, didn't have any issues with it. I don't extensively use it for all of the features and options, but I use it often all the time as I'm setting everything up and making sure it's working. It does have Bluetooth connectivity to an app on my phone. That is the one piece I have not used, but the nice thing is you have 3 options to control this device. Also, heavy duty. I feel this is able to take, it's rated for 88 pounds of capacity, and I have no doubt that it is able to that. I've probably put about 50 pounds on it so far myself, and it has had no issues. I have had no concerns with it straining. It works flawlessly. It's relatively quiet. The only few cons that I have, one, there's a little bit of play in the top compared to when it catches in. So if you're doing a rotation, you kind of want to make sure that you've got that play removed, because if I start it and I'm doing these very small incremental moves, it may not start moving because I may not have that play removed. The other downside, I found an issue on the Android app. As I mentioned, I cannot go below 1 degree of rotation. If I type a 0 or a decimal, it reboots the app. But yet the controller, the remote, I can go to 0.1, I can go to 0.5. On the Windows software, I can put in any decimal number that I want as long as I put a 0 in front of it, so 0.25. But the Bluetooth app crashes when I do that. And then the downside to the Windows software is I've run into some issues over a long time-lapse video that I was trying to capture. So after I've noticed about maybe 2, 3, 4 hours into running the software on my computer, it will come up with a memory issue. And I believe it's either a memory leak, there's something not right with the software, because I have plenty of RAM on my computer. I've tried it on multiple computers. I have a computer that is more of a gaming computer, so very high-end CPU, lots of RAM, and it did the same thing. So one of the reasons I wanted this was to do maybe some overnight time lapses where I could set up my automation, I could go to sleep, let this run through the night, but unfortunately I can't 100% trust the software to run consistently. It does work. It does last for multiple hours. I've had it go for 4 to 6 hours without an issue, but anything that I've tried to do an extended amount of it operating on the computer, at some point it either crashes the software, comes up with an error message that you have to hit OK, and then that disrupts your time lapse that you're trying to capture. So there are definitely some downsides. It was a little bit confusing trying to navigate the website to find the right drivers, to find the right executable file. So there are things that this is not the simplest plug and play. Every option is user-friendly. There is some setup. There is some navigation. There is reading through the manual and trying to interpret some of the language and some of the conversion to English. So this may not be for everybody. Now, there are other ComXim turntables that have just the remote and just the app. So when you're looking online, if you see the blue cable in the picture, you know that's the one that you can hook up to a Windows computer. So if you need that, if you have a reason to have this controlled from a Windows computer for any of your projects, I do recommend this. It works, but definitely has some flaws, and you have to be willing to have some patience with it. And unfortunately, I'm hoping they improve the software to eliminate this, stoppage that happens every once in a while. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful. If you purchased one of these and were having some issues trying to find the software, I hope what I walked you through made it a little bit easier. If you enjoy this content, if you want to watch some of my time-lapse videos and see how I'm doing rotation and how this device is being used, head over to my channel. I would really appreciate it if you give this a like. Leave me any comments. Is there anything that I missed? Do you have this device? Are you having the same issues with the software on the Windows computer? Do you know of another device that you can control from a Windows computer? As always, appreciate everybody's time watching this, and we'll see you next time.